Hello guys. Today's lesson is going to be a bit different because it's like an introduction to a very big part of the SAT reading section, which is the paired passages. And those passages are going to talk about the history of the United States. You're going to compare two historical documents. So to begin with, we have to start with the very beginning of the United States. We're going to talk about the American Civil War. Okay. Now, to start with, we're going to start with the presidential election of 1860, which is about the election of Abraham Lincoln. So in 1860, Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln ran against each other again. Okay. This time for president. So Douglas was, let's say, the let's say the most important candidate running against Lincoln. And Lincoln had become well known from his debates about slavery. If you know anything about history, if you know anything about Lincoln, the most famous thing about him is that he supported the people who were enslaved. Slavery is gonna play a very big part in the Civil War. You're gonna see in a minute. This time Lincoln won, becoming the 16th president. Okay, so Lincoln won at the end. Now, if we just have a look at the map here, the states in red color are the states who elected Lincoln, and the states, only one state or two states in yellow color, these elected Douglas. Okay, then we have the blue states, they elected Breckinridge. Then we have the green states, they elected Bell. Okay, so as you see, Abraham Lincoln won by the percentage of 39.8%. Okay. Okay. So after Abraham Lincoln won, there comes a problem. Let's say the southern part of the United States did not support Abraham Lincoln. So after he won, they wanted to let's say to be separated from the United States, so they started to secede. Okay, secede, it means that they don't want to become a part of the United States anymore. Okay, so Lincoln received no support in the South because they believe Lincoln wanted to end slavery. See, there comes the biggest issue. Since there were so many more people in the North, he won the election anyway. So the only reason that he won the election is that there were more people in the North. That's it. Okay, so it's about like the number, okay, not the number of states or something like this. No, people in the North were more, so this is the only reason he won the election. Okay, and after he won the election, people in the South were let's say they were supporting slavery. Okay, they wanted slaves to work in the fields, for example, or in other works. Okay, so there comes the problem. As soon as Lincoln won the election, the South started to secede. Okay, so this means that the South split from the Union. They no longer wanted to be a part of the United States, as we said. Okay, so it's the secession of the southern states. Secession. Okay, they wanted to secede. Supporters of secession based their arguments on the idea of states' rights. They had voluntarily joined the Union so they could leave when they wanted. So the states, or let's say the people who supported the secession, believed that, so okay, we joined the Union and we're gonna leave it now. So we are, let's say, we are not forced, or we were not forced to join the Union, and right now we have the ability to leave the Union again. Okay. Now, the Confederate States of America, CSA. Now, the states who ceded they formed like another union, and they were called the Confederate States of America. Okay. Now, on December the 20th, 1860, South Carolina became the first state to secede. They were followed by Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. So all of these states seceded, and they formed like a country, a new country called Confederate States of America, CSA. The 11 states that had seceded became the Confederate States of America. They named Jefferson Davis as president. So right now we have two countries. One of them in the north, the Union, and the president was who? Do you remember? Abraham Lincoln. And the South seceded, 11 states seceded, and they formed something called Confederate States of America, and they elected Jefferson Davis as the president. They wrote a new constitution which made slavery legal. So again, there comes the major problem, which is slavery. Abraham Lincoln was against slavery. He wanted to end slavery, but the South did not agree. They disagreed. So they seceded, and they formed a new country, and they wrote a new constitution in which slavery was legal. And this was Jefferson Davis. This is the picture of Jefferson Davis, the president of the CSA, the Confederate States of America. Now, the Civil War. Now, before we begin with the Civil War, we have to know what is the meaning of, we have to know the answer to this question. What is the meaning of Civil War? Now, a civil war is war between people of the same country. There have been many civil wars, but one of the worst happened in America. So we've heard of lots of civil wars, but one of the most hideous, let's say, happened in America. The American Civil War was fought to keep the South from leaving the Union. So let's say that after Lincoln was elected, the South seceded. So because they seceded, they fought a war against them because they did not allow them to leave the Union. Slavery was the major issue that separated the North from the South. Okay, so I'm writing this in bullet points for you to remember. Again, you have to be familiar with the history of the United States. So slavery was the major issue that, let's say, ignited the Civil War in America. Now, the Civil War began at Fort Sumter on April the 12th, 1861. Of course, you don't have to memorize the dates, but you have to be familiar with them, and you have to know where the first battle was during the Civil War, the American Civil War. It was at Fort Sumter. Now, Fort Sumter, this is Fort Sumter. It was a place that was governed by the Union, the North, and but it was in the South. Okay, so they attacked it. The South attacked the fort of Sumter because it was governed by the Union. Now, Fort Sumter was a Union fort in the South, and the Union had a hard time defending it. They surrendered 34 hours later. Okay, so it was a defeat for the Union because maybe the place of this fort, and they had a hard time defending it, so they surrendered after 34 hours. There were 23 states in the Union, the North, at the beginning of the war, and there were 11 states in the Confederacy in the South at the beginning of the war. Now, Union and Confederate States. Now we're going to see a map. The blue color, let's say the dark blue, they were Union territories, and the light blue was or let's say the light blue states were the Union states, and then we have the gray part, the gray color. These were the 11 states of the Confederate, the CSA, the Confederate States of America. Now, we're gonna compare now the North advantages and the South's advantages. So the North had some major advantages. Let's see what they are. They had many more people. Again, remember the reason why Abraham Lincoln won the election, because there were many people, more people in the North. They had many more factories which could be used to make weapons. Okay, so let's say that they have the places they need to make weapons. The Union also had many more miles of railroad tracks. Okay, so these tracks again were used to transport soldiers and equipment. Okay, now let's look at the South's advantages. The South's main advantage was that they were fighting at home. Now remember, they won. They managed to win at Fort Sumter because they were fighting at home. They were closer to their supplies, okay? And they would fight harder because they were protecting their homes. Now again, if you are fighting at home, then you are protecting your home, then you're gonna be more fierce and you're gonna fight harder. Southern soldiers were better equipped with the skills necessary to survive a war. Okay, let's say that they lived a hard life. Let's say it like this. So they were better equipped for a war, okay, in general, than the people in the North. Now, Abraham Lincoln, we're gonna see, we're gonna talk about the two presidents, one of the Union and one of the CSA, the Confederacy. The president of the Union was Abraham Lincoln, who had been elected in 1860. This is a picture of him. I think you know him from a place. I'm sure that you've seen his statue somewhere in America, in pictures again, not in the United States, but I think that you must have seen some pictures of him. Now, and this is Jefferson Davis. This is the president of the new Confederate States of America, or CSA, or the Confederacy. He was called Jefferson Davis, and this is a picture of him. So these were, let's say, the leaders of the Civil War. Okay, now we're going to talk about a very important battle, the Battle of Bull Run. Now, this battle was one of the first battles of the war, and the North realized after this battle that the war would not be easy and would not be over soon as they originally thought. Now, people in the North, because maybe there were more people in the North, so they thought that it's going to be an easy war, they're going to win really soon. But after this battle, because it was very hard, they changed their mind. Not changed their mind, but they let's say they had to think again. They had second thoughts about this, and they realized that this war is going to be hard and it's gonna last long. And this is a picture of the Battle of Bull Run. Okay. Now, in these battles, new weapons were used, and one of them is or was the ironclad ship. Now, this ship, the ironclad ship, was like a normal ship, but it was, let's say, protected against cannon fire by adding iron plates to this ship, on this ship. Okay, this is a picture of some ironclad ships. Now, other weapons, we have deadlier cannons and bullets, and we're going to see a picture in a minute. And we have rifles that were more accurate. So the Civil War was, let's say, good for the sake of new weaponry. let's think about it like this. Okay, so this is a cannon, and these cannons were deadlier, and these are bullets, and these are the rifles. Okay, now we're gonna speak about another battle, the Battle of Antietam. This battle was important too, because it was the first time the Confederacy invaded Northern Territory. Now, remember what we said? We said that the South had some advantages because they were fighting at home, but this time in this battle, they actually went to the Northern Territory to fight, and this was the first battle that was fought on Union grounds. So they were led by General Robert Lee, and it began on September the 17th, 1862. Remember, we don't have to memorize the dates, we have to be familiar with them. And it lasted for 12 hours. Now you might think that 12 hours is not very a long time, but it is. Now come on, this is a battle. It was the bloodiest battle day in United States history. So again, the southern part moved to Northern Territory to fight this battle. So it was very bloody, because 23,000 men lost their lives that day. The Union Army stopped the Confederate Army again, so they won again. Now remember that the Union is going to win the war at the end, so they must have won a lot. The Union Army stopped the Confederate Army. This victory by the Union gave President Lincoln the chance to announce the abolition of slavery in the South. Okay, so after this battle, now remember the importance of this battle. We have many points. First, it was fought on Northern Territory, not Southern Territory. Second, it was very bloody because 23,000 men died that day, and the Union won. So, and this victory gave Lincoln the chance to abolish slavery in the South. Okay, abolish means end. Okay, and this is a picture of battle at Antietam. This is another picture. You can just see the dead bodies. I'm sorry for the scenery. Okay. After this, we have the Emancipation Proclamation. What is this? On January the 1st, 1863, President Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all slaves should be set free in the Confederacy. Okay? So again, this Emancipation Proclamation was announced to end slavery in the South. Remember, okay? So all slaves should be set free in the Confederacy. It also allowed blacks to serve in the Union Army and Navy. Now, you're gonna think about something that maybe in the South there were many black people, but again they needed, let's say, soldiers to fight the battle, but they did not allow black people to enter the army. I mean, people in the South. Okay, so just think about it. But people in the North had no problem with this, and after the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln announced that black people can be, or let's say, they are allowed to join the Union Army. The South ignored, of course, the Emancipation Proclamation, but it did change the focus of the war to the issue of slavery. Now, Abraham Lincoln announced that slavery should be ended in the CSA territory, but the Southern, let's say, the Southern Confederacy ignored this. But right now, after this, the main focus of the Civil War was slavery indeed. Okay, and this is a picture of the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, so women in the Civil War. Women on both sides worked during the war. Many became nurses. The most famous nurse from the Union was Clara Barton. And you're gonna see lots of historical documents in paired passages about women. Okay, about the rights of women, about women at work, about like all this stuff about women in the beginning of the United States. She also helped organize the American Red Cross. We're gonna have a picture of Clara Barton. She was a very famous nurse, and she helped organize the American Red Cross. I think there is a movie about this. Okay, now we're gonna move to another battle, which is the Battle of Gettysburg. Again, sorry for the scenery. This is an actual footage of the Battle of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg was one of the bloodiest battles of the war. It took place from July the 1st to the 3rd, 1863. So it lasted for 3 days, and 97 Union soldiers fought. 75,000 soldiers, Confederate soldiers, also fought. So this is a very big number, so it was a huge battle. More than 50,000 men were killed or wounded in the battle. So the casualties were, like, let's say, considerable. Okay. Now the Union won again the Battle of Gettysburg, and many felt it was a turning point in the war. So this is, let's say, the importance of this battle. Many Northerners started supporting the army after this by lending them money to help pay for the war. Now after this, because the Union won this battle, so lots of rich people, let's say, started to think, now, yeah, we're gonna win the war, so we're gonna participate more using our money. This was called a war bond, okay, which is again supporting the army by lending them money. And this is an actual footage of this. This is like a $50 donation, something like this. Okay, now after Gettysburg, and remember that it was a very important battle, because it was a turning point. Now after this, President Abraham Lincoln went to the battlefield to dedicate a cemetery in honor of all those who had died. So the president himself went there to the battleground, the battlefield, to honor soldiers who had died there. So and he dedicated a cemetery. Lincoln spoke for 2 minutes, but this speech became very famous. Now, if you just Google Gettysburg address, you're gonna find hundreds of videos and texts about this speech. Okay, so it was like a very long speech, but Lincoln got to talk for 2 minutes, and it was called Gettysburg address because it was really important. Okay. Now this is again a picture, painted of course, of the Gettysburg address. Okay, so he spoke for 2 minutes, and right now I'm gonna make you listen to his speech.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure.
Now I'm gonna stop this video here. I'm gonna talk about the very first beginning of the Gettysburg Address. If you just heard well, he said fourscore. Okay, So I'm gonna move to the next slide. Look, this is an actual footage of the Gettysburg address. Look, if you can see the pointer of my mouse here, 4 scores and 7 years ago. Now, 4 scores. Do you know the meaning of this? 4 scores. Scores means 20. So 4 scores means 80, like 80 and 7. So it's like 87 years ago. Okay? So if you want to translate 4 scores and 7 years ago, then it's like 87 years ago. Now, why did he begin his speech using this? 4 scores and 7 years ago. Why didn't he say 87 years ago? It's not a matter of old versus new English, no. You can be asked about this on the real SAT, I don't know, maybe. But 4 scores and 7 years ago, let's say that he wanted to tell the world that the United States, or the Union of the United States, was based on the Bible, maybe. So because 4 scores was mentioned in the Bible, it was like the language of the Bible. So he wanted to say that our country was based on religious beliefs and something like this, to give it more strength. Okay. So again, remember the beginning, 4 scores and 7 years ago, which is 87 years ago. Our fathers, blah blah blah, and till the end. You can just Google Gettysburg address and just listen or read if you want. If you want to search documents, you can read the whole speech. It's only 2 minutes. You can listen to it again, and please do so. I'm gonna send you links, by the way, for the speech. Okay, now we are about to end, but we have other important dates I have to mention. In March of 1864, President Lincoln appointed General Ulysses S. Grant. I'm sure that you have heard of this name or seen it somewhere. Now, General Ulysses S. Grant was the leader of the Union Army. On November the 6th, 1864, President Lincoln was re-elected as president for the Union. So they elected him again. Okay. After several more battles, Confederate General Robert E. Lee, remember we mentioned his name before, surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant on April the 9th, 1865. So the war was officially over. Okay. So this is why the name of this general, Ulysses S. Grant, is important. Okay, because he managed to end the Civil War. On April the 14th, 1865, while enjoying a night at the theater with his wife, I think you know the rest of this, he was shot. President Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth. He died at 7:22 a.m. the next day. Okay, so he was like just attending a night at the theater and he was shot. Okay, after they won the war. On December the 6th, 1865, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. Okay, ratified means like they signed it and approved it. Okay, like approved it. This amendment abolished slavery. Abolish slavery means ended slavery. So Lincoln helped to keep the United States together by fighting the Civil War, and he helped ending the slavery. Okay, we reached the end of our lesson. Please stay safe, stay at home, do not go outside, save lives. See ya.